Good morning and welcome to our session on how to make a difference. I call this the power of one, and that one is you. You know, we all start in the same place as idealists. Talk to any child in a school, talk to anyone, first day, first job. They want to change things, they want to make a difference. They want to do something which was never done before. They want to walk where no one walked before. They want to create results which have not been seen before. But what happens to them? I'll tell you what happens. Let me describe the scene. You just got a job in this great corporation. New person straight out of business school. Your boss tells you, he says, you know, Yavar, what I want you to do is to watch me for the next 2 weeks. And then I want you to write me a report about my leadership style. So what do I do now? Straight out of college, full of ideals, very idealistic, very honest, very straightforward, high integrity, so on, so on. I write this beautiful 5-page report about my boss's style, which can be condensed into one word, and that is, his style stinks. Now, what do you think happens to that report? You know, the boss takes the report, he reads the report, and he says, well, you know, I appreciate your honesty, but I think you will learn as you go along. Thank you very much. And the report then hits the floor or hits the dustbin. Now, this is not the only time this will happen. So when idealistic people live in the world, they will find that such incidents don't happen to them once, they happen again and again and again. Now, gradually, if you are not clear about yourself, then what happens is you start becoming what I call optimistic. Now, to me, an optimist is somebody who's a step down from an idealist, because idealism is something in the heart. It's not something that's that easy to kill. So you can dampen it a bit. So the person still is optimistic, and you know, after, for example, this incident that I explained to you, the scenario, if he walks out of the place and his friend says, well, you know, what happened to your report? He'll say, yeah, you know, maybe he'll look at it again. You know, after all, he didn't throw it in my face. I mean, he threw it in the dustbin. So that's a positive sign. The optimist tends to put a positive spin on everything as he sees it. But you know, life is funny. These things keep happening over and over again. So gradually, the person becomes what we know as a realist. He starts telling himself, well, these ideals are good. You know, we hear about them and so on, but get real. This is life, right? These ideals don't really work all the time. Maybe they work sometimes, but you know, get real. Now, while this is happening, you also acquire advisors in the organization, in your environment. People who will call you aside and they'll tell you, you know, why do you always get into this trouble? Why do you keep putting yourself in the way for getting punched in the face? Why do you do that? I mean, why can't you be, within quotes, diplomatic? You don't always have to tell the truth like it is. You know, I mean, dress it up a little bit if you have to. You're not lying. It's not lying outright. But you don't have to tell somebody. If someone says, tell me the truth, he doesn't even mean it. He doesn't want you to tell the truth. So why are you telling the truth? You know, be kind to yourself. So you get all this kind of advice. And it goes on. And slowly, if you don't watch yourself, you start becoming what we call pessimistic. When somebody comes and says, you know, great things are possible, then you go back to your failures and you say, well, you know, I don't think so. Well, I tried this and it failed, and I tried that and it failed, and this doesn't work and that doesn't work. We get focused more and more and more on how things don't work. We become pessimistic. And all these advisors that come along, they help us to become more pessimistic. And then, of course, you have these cynics in the organization, the people who always have this joke to tell, the people who always have this funny story, but all of those have a negative connotation. Cynics are those people who always put a negative spin on something. Cynics are fashionable, you know, they're sort of life of the party kind of thing, but nothing positive, nothing worthwhile ever comes out of a cynic. It's always something which is negative. And remember, no monuments are built to a cynic. Monuments are built to those people who continued despite the cynic. Now, if you are still on that same slide, eventually you will reach a point which I call indifferent, where it really doesn't matter. So at that point in time, somebody comes and tells you, you know, you have this guy, Yavar Beg, who's going to give this motivational lecture. Why don't you come and listen to that? You say, well, what's the point? Right? You say, no, but you know, he says all these things. You say, yeah, well, he says that. That's his job. He's supposed to say that. What else will he say? Right? But this is not true. None of that is going to happen. We become indifferent. It doesn't matter to us one way or the other. And all change, therefore, comes to an end. But remember one thing, and that's the reason I'm telling you this, not because I want to lead you down a road to negativity. The reason I'm telling you this is because one reality of life, which is that the spark of idealism that we are born with in our heart never dies. It will die the day you die. Until you are alive, that spark remains in your heart. And that's the reason why when you are idealistic and when you speak idealistically to people, people get angry, they push back. You know why? Not because they disagree with you, not because they don't like what you're saying. They push back because in their eyes, they see what they were like one day. And you remind them of what they were like one day. And in your eyes, they can see what they did to themselves. And they don't like that picture. So the first reaction is, if I can make this guy shut up, if I can make him agree that what I did was right, then my job is over and I am okay. But you know what? You come across at that time, shameless idealist. I'm a shameless idealist. Look at me well. I'm a shameless idealist. I believe this way and I will be this way until the day I die, inshallah. The point is that when they come across people who are idealistic and who refuse to give up their idealism because of cynicism, because of indifference, because of pessimism, you know what happens? A wonderful thing happens, and that is that spark of idealism which was there in their heart now starts to gain strength, and it becomes the shooting, the great energetic flame that it was one day. And you will find that you will start getting helpers, and you will start getting people who will support you in your idealism, in your ideals, from sources that you could not imagine. And that's why I tell you that the spark of idealism never dies. It's always there in your heart. How do you light it in the hearts of other people? By ensuring that it never dies down in your own heart. Because what do you need to light 1,000 candles? You need a lighted candle. And that's the reason why it's very important never to allow that flame of idealism to die in your heart. I wish you all the very best. Go out there and change the world, because this world needs to be changed.